Welcome back to Shifting Overthinking to Marketing Movement, a limited audio series for creative, equity-led solopreneurs with a story and expertise to share. This gets you out of your own head to find clarity and direction so you can build sustainable marketing processes that fit your body, brain, and capacity. So one of the things that frustrates me about this aspect of marketing, meaning messaging, is that we often see this messaging as a disembodied concept from the rest of your marketing. So let me say, just here and now, messaging is one way we talk about it, but the concept in the marketing world, when I went to school for this, it's really positioning. So in the old days, positioning was how you literally positioned yourself against your competitors. And as we I think a lot of us don't love the idea of competitors, right? Because we're all doing similar things. That doesn't mean that we're competing. We're just doing it in different ways, which is kind of what messaging is nowadays. I see it more about how to position yourself in the mind of your ideal clients. Especially in a world that is so saturated with advertising and content that is competing for everyone's attention. I often see people marketing how to help you construct a tagline or construct and polish an elevator pitch, but maybe not explain the messaging process. So when it's time to revamp or tweak, which as we said in the last episode is not, it's encouraged to do this, it's going to be a lot harder because you don't know all of the pieces and how all of the messaging fits into everything else. So like I said, this may be because people did not necessarily go to school for this, which is fine. But I think it's helpful to have a comprehensive view of how it all fits together, which is why when I work with folks in Storyspark Connection, the Done With You offer that I do, before we get into the nitty-gritty of any of this, we're looking at the big picture. We're looking at the strategy and the goals so that we can see how messaging is just one piece of the puzzle for everything that happens. So one of the hardest aspects of messaging, in my mind, is recognizing in yourself the things that make you unique to clients. While it's often talked about as a confidence issue, I'm not always convinced that is what it is, although of course it can be. But I think it's just more about really hard to be objective about your own self. It's your life, it's your strengths, your education. It feels so normal, right? It feels mundane even. Why would anyone care? But what seems boring to you can be the thing that captures the attention of your ideal clients. So to kind of give you an idea and get the context here, in my messaging work, I've categorized types of unique differentiators to help get us thinking about all of these different ways we uniquely approach the work that we do with clients. Some of these are core values and practices, your overarching purpose, your creative strengths, your lived experiences and identities, your inspiration and your lineage, your own personal journey and how that reflects that of what your clients are going through. And I feel like all of these crystallize and go into your insights, your expertise, and also the modalities and frameworks, basically the approach that you take in your work. Being able to look at them individually and being able to write them about them separately, I think helps to add a little bit more objectivity about those different factors that go into why someone would want to work with you. For the action step for this piece, I'm actually going to take it from, it's something that I found from Austin L. Church of Freelance Cake that I find very helpful. I know we did this before. I hope you like free writing. We're going to be doing that sometimes in this series, but set a timer for 15 minutes and write out all of your possible differentiators. So that's why I listed it out before, to help you if you get stuck. But other ways you can think through this would be projects that you've done, trainings, the industries you've worked in, your certifications, all of your personality types. So think like your human design, your Enneagram, your Myers-Briggs, if you use that, all of that, your previous corporate career. Anything that makes you the current business owner, service provider, creative that you are. We'll come back to that in the next section, but I think that's super helpful to get it all into one place and just kind of brain dump it. In the beginning of this episode, I mentioned positioning, and now this isn't just one deliverable. It's a system. What we're doing now is clarifying how we explain our business as a whole and creating like a system of repeatable language that strengthens the associations that we want folks to have around our business. Because good news for us low capacity people, messaging consistency will trump content frequency every time. Talking about the same thing or using the same words may seem redundant, but the reality is that people are seeing at least 10,000 marketing advertisements every day. So no one is thinking as hard about you as you think. Using the same phrases not only saves you time, right? But it's going to make it far more likely that you will be remembered. Think of it like a refrain in a poem, right? It's something that is repeated intentionally as a literary device to continue to stick in your mind. Or probably a lot more current day, the chorus of a popular earwormy song. So looking at what we wrote for the first exercise, I find that this is where overthinking can creep in, because we can't just word vomit all over our ideal clients, although sometimes some elevator pitches do feel like they were somebody's word vomit at one point. We really have to distill it down into what is relevant to the person we're talking to. But here's the thing, we are not the person that we're talking to, so how do we know what to include? I have the action step that will help with this later. But if you're like me and like writers are very protective of things, so if everything feels very precious and I can't leave anything out, this is how I justify it when I'm at the kind of more of the distilling down and the cutting down phase. I look at all of these things and I'm like, which factors or which differentiators that I'm really stuck on, are some of those similar enough that I can kind of combine them and I'm not really leaving them out? I'm just more finding the common threads and themes of these things? Or are there some aspects that I find are interesting, but maybe they're not important enough to make it into the core messaging, but maybe they make good content. You know, as you're cutting down and clarifying and distilling, nothing is wasted. So hold on to all of it. And then finally, I'm laughing because of what I wrote. I said, is this just interesting lore about me? Right? I'm an oversharer at times, like some neurodivergent people are. So is this just interesting lore about me, or does it actually offer context into the way I approach my work, or who the people I work with, or the results that they can expect? If you can frame it that way, great. Then maybe it needs to stay. But otherwise, it maybe just is part of that journey that we can kind of gloss over in the montage, so to speak. If you remember last episode, we got feedback on our elevator pitch from some folks. So we're going to come back to that. But instead, we're going to look at another way to look objectively at our business-ish. We're going to pull up any testimonials or reviews that you may have. If you don't already have these all in one place, please do yourself a favor. Create a Google Drive folder. Keep these somewhere where they're all in one place, either screenshots. I'll also pull out the text and put it in a Google Doc. Just do that for yourself, because you're probably going to continue to use those throughout your business and your marketing later anyways. But as you're reading through them, and this is where I think putting it in a Google Doc helps, start highlighting the common themes that come up. What they struggled with, why they chose you to work with, how they discuss their results. And start to look for patterns. So as you're doing that, then also compare it to your earlier free writing exercise and look to see where the patterns come from. Maybe there's overlap on that Venn diagram. You know, it may be connecting some of what they are seeing to parts of your own story and your own journey. Maybe some of the things they're talking about is related to how you used to be like a nurse or a tech consultant, like it was for me. Or maybe it's how you're able to leverage your Clifton strengths. Maybe being neurodivergent changes how you approach your work. So start looking at their outcomes and their struggles and like what they're talking about and tie them to your own differentiators. This actually, do you remember in school when we had to like match up words to like definitions and then you had to draw the lines to different things? This is something you can potentially do. I don't know if that's just my own nostalgia, but I found that was fun. So if you want to do it that way, you can. Tying your own differentiators to outcomes, I think, is the key to learning to clarify. Not because it's not important, but like, again, it's about framing so they understand the context. It's not just, hey, I used to be a nurse, or hey, I used to be, a fashion blogger, or hey, I used to do like architecture consulting. Why does that change the work that you do or how you approach it in a way that makes sense for them? Because they're using this information to make a decision for themselves at the end of the day, right? And so that's what messaging is and positioning is. It's like that association that they're building in their mind. Why would I want to choose this person over somebody else? It's not about competition. It's just about fit. It's about like who's a better fit, who understands like where I'm coming from a bit better, because we all have those individual lived experiences. Nobody can replicate that. No one can replicate your story in these exact constellation of unique differentiators. So just being able to recognize them in yourself and be able to express them is going to put you like in a much better place as we go through and we actually look at content and we actually look at sales process and we look at some of these other things. So it is that foundation in that way. It's doing the heavy lifting of everything else. You know, in my Done With You offer, Storyspark Connection, we discuss the unique differentiators that we discuss in this episode and how to weave them through your message, your content ecosystem, your sales process. And each month we co-create one of those systems that feels enjoyable for you, but also works with your capacity instead of trying to stretch it out to the max. If you want more information about that, I can drop a link in the show notes. But in closing, we're here to make meaningful progress in your business by shifting out of overthinking, clarifying your priorities that match your capacity and values so that you can move forward in your marketing. And I will see you in the next one.